All right, it is 2 o'clock. Welcome to our Reliability and Security Oversight Monthly Update of 2024. I'm so excited to be here with you today. I know we've had a pretty cold week leading up to now, but the sun is out here in Salt Lake City and it's a beautiful day. I hope even if you don't have a sunny day, you're at least somewhere nice and warm. My name is Maylee Cook and I am the Training and Outreach Specialist here at WECC. And I'm going to start off with a few announcements for you. First, we have our Reliability in the West discussion series. This is what was formerly known as the Resource Adequacy Discussion Series. It's got a little bit of a refresh for 2024. Our first discussion will be on February 7th, and it will focus on inverter-based resources and ride-through capability. Based on experience from previous IBR-related events, the discussion will explore the current status of ride-through capability and associated risks. So we hope to see you there, and we're excited to have this series return for 2024. Next up will be our grid fundamentals. This will be a virtual offering of this course. It will be on February 27th and 28th. It's a great class if you're new to industry or have someone new to industry and would like a little more information on how our electric power system works. Go ahead and sign up, and we're dropping the links to these items in the chat. Next up is our Reliability and Security Workshop, which will be here in Salt Lake City in March on the 26th and 27th. We're excited to have you join us here where WECC's headquartered. In addition to the Reliability and Security Workshop, we also have an Enforcement Fundamentals. We can go to our next slide. That will be held the day before the workshop and is a one-day course that will give you an overview of the enforcement process, and anyone is welcome to attend, and you have the links to register for both of those in the chat. All right, quite a few announcements for you. We'll hope to see you at some of those events. For our antitrust policy, all WECC meetings are conducted in accordance with the WECC antitrust policy and the NERC antitrust compliance guidelines. All participants must comply with the policy and guidelines. This meeting is public. Confidential or proprietary information should not be discussed in open session. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted publicly. By participating, you give your consent for your name, voice, image, and likeness to be included in that recording. WECC strives to ensure the information presented today is accurate and reflects the views of WECC. However, all interpretations and positions are subject to change. If you have any questions, please contact WECC's legal counsel. If you have a question during our session today, feel free to send it using the chat feature to WECC meetings, or you can use the raise hand feature and we'll give you access by unmuting you and you could ask your question directly to our presenters. And we have two topics for you today. First off will be a self-certification training offered by Angela Shapiro. And then following her, Mark Rogers will give us a registration and certification update. So Angie, we'll send it over to you first.
Thank you, Maylee, and good afternoon to everyone. As I mentioned in the last monthly update, if you were dialed in, the annual self-certification was sent on December 15th. And so as such, it seems as good a time as any to do some training on the self-certification functionality in Align. We initially performed some training back in 2021 when the Align functionality was new. We've had some enhancement requests come through and be updated in various new releases. And so with those changes, we wanted to give you a quick refresher on how the system works and the changes that have come through since the beginning. And this training is geared particularly for the annual self-certification. However, if you are participating in a guided self-certification or another activity in the future, you can still use much of this training in that regard. So it should still be relevant. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So what we'll be covering today, how to locate the self-certification request in Align, how to make the assignments, and how to add responses. We will cover when you should create findings, attestations, or extension requests, and then how to do those steps. We will close out with how you submit the responses back to WECC and finish by going over some of the resources available to you. Next. So in Align, you will navigate to the self-certifications view in the menu, and the default tab is the active self-cert request. And you will see the pending self-certification request down there. To open it, you'll click that unique ID link, and when it opens, you'll see relevant dates of the request, including the start date, due date, the monitoring period, start and end date. You'll also see instructions for responding. The instructions include a link to a comprehensive document that's posted on WECC's website that states kind of the instructions, much of what I'm going over today, but it's really detailed, and it's probably your best bet for filling out the form. As you continue looking at the request, you will see a list. So after you open it up, click on it, you'll see a list of requirements that are in scope that you need to provide a response. And I have a screenshot on this on the next slide. So once you've come here, you'll see a list of the requirements. And in this screenshot, I kind of set it up. I know it's kind of small and weird looking, but I set it up this way so that you could see the various stages of the process. So initially, all of the requirements will look kind of like example number 1 at the bottom, where you'll see the standard and the requirement and a click to assign. So once you have clicked on number 1, it'll update and the system will change to say the example number 2. You know, assignment finalization is incomplete and you need to click there to finalize. And you can also see in the status column that it'll change from not assigned to pending assignment. After you click on that, you'll finalize it, but we're going to walk through that in a minute. First, I wanted to show you kind of the statuses here. So after you click on it, it'll look and make the assignment, it will look like number 3, and you will be able to see who it's assigned to. That person will have the option to click there to assign, to answer the assessment. And you'll also see that any sub-requirements or parts will also get populated, similar to, you know, the icon number 4. I don't know what to call these. Example, I guess, number 4. You'll see, for example, mod 25.2R1.1 and 1.2. So that's kind of how these assignments show up. And as you can see, these line items multiply pretty quickly. If you do make a mistake on one of the assignments, you can reassign. You can see up there to assign again. But keep in mind, it's going to create another line, yet another duplicate line of that requirement. And the old assignments don't disappear and can't be deleted. So I recommend having a plan before you start clicking on the links of how you're going to make the assignments. And so that can help it stay a little bit more organized. After you have responded to the assessment, and we'll cover that later, you'll save your progress. The line will update again and will look like number 5. So the status shows it's complete, and you can click on a link to view your answer, but it's not modifiable at that point. So let's circle back to what happens after you click on number 2. So number 1, you click to assign. Number 2, you're going to finalize an assignment. So we'll have a screenshot on the next slide. So on this slide, this is the pop-up window that happens after you click on that. Keep in mind, anyone who has the Align Registered Entity Editor permission can make these assignments, but only users with the submitter permission, the Align Registered Entity Submitter permission, can send the self-certification back to the region, back to WECC for processing. The left section on the screen, you can see you can make select the assignee, your own name will be the default option. If you want to assign someone else, then you click the little chain link icon to choose a different name. The simplest option generally is for the submitter to assign themselves and respond to the assessments and submit. But you can do you. On the right side of the image, you will see an option to add multiple requirements. So you don't have to do each requirement at a time. You can click on the link icon, select additional requirements to answer, and after you make the selection, you'll see it'll pop up blank. So if you wanted to see, to make sure that you had the right requirements, you will make sure that the action is set to none, hit update, open it back up again, and you'll be able to see all of those requirements populated. So once you are ready, you have your assignee and you have the requirements you want to assign to them, you will change the action to assign and then click update. So let's go to the next slide, please. So once you're ready to answer the question, as I mentioned earlier, you'll need to click on the link to provide an answer for each requirement. Your response options are compliant, non-compliant, not applicable, and do not own. So you will select one from the drop-down. Adding a comment is not required, regardless of the response you choose. We do, however, encourage you to provide any relevant information, especially if the response is something other than compliant. And you must provide a response for all requirements. As I said, the system will populate the various sub-requirements or parts. And if you open it up in the screenshot, you'll see that you can provide a comment at this level, but it's optional to respond to the parts. Then you will, you can click the Save button and it'll save your progress. You can go in, modify it later, review it. But once you're ready to finalize, you'll click that green Save button and it will no longer be modifiable and it will be finalized. And so you'll have to do that for each of the requirements in scope. And if you provided a response other than compliant, you have some additional action to take. So we'll go on the next slide. So if, for instance, you have a non-compliant response, you need to first go down to the accordion, the findings accordion in the self-cert record, and review any related findings to see if you have previously submitted a finding, like a self-report, for a non-compliant response in question. And if there isn't already one inside there, then you're going to need to click the plus button next to the requirement, the applicable requirement. And when you click that, it'll pop up the findings form, in the same form that you complete if you are creating a self-report. And we ask that you do provide the findings through this self-certification record because that gives it the correct discovery method. So once you've completed that form, you will save it as a draft. So let's go to the next slide and talk through what happens to that draft. So after creating the draft, you will need to navigate to the self-reports and logs view to submit the finding. You can see the draft self-certification finding under the My Drafts section. You will click Save an Action to submit the finding, or I mean, you'll scroll down to the action section of that findings form, select Submit, and hit the Save an Action button to submit this self-certification finding to WECC. And we prefer that you do this step prior to submitting the self-certification response. However, as long as you create that draft, it can sit there while you do any of your internal processes that you need to complete before submission, but that way it will have the correct discovery method attached to it and have it connected to this self-certification. So let's go to the next slide, please. So that's how you respond to non-compliance. If you have a not applicable or do not own response to one or more requirements, prior to completing this self-certification, you'll need to go and submit an attestation. You will scroll down to the self-certification, in the self-certification request to the Create Attestation accordion. It will list all of the requirements with each function that's applicable that you're registered, all your registered functions that are applicable to that requirement. So select the plus icon next to the requirement and it will pull up a field to annotate the details of your attestation. For example, you will provide a description of why the requirement is not applicable to your entity, or that you do not own the facility required for this particular requirement. Although you will see the requirement listed for each of those registered functions, we ask that you only submit one attestation and just let us know what functions are applicable in that case for your entity. To be clear, the compliant and non-compliant responses do not require an attestation. It's limited to the not applicable or do not own responses. You are attesting to this fact so that WECC can take these things into account for future monitoring. All right, next. The other thing that you can do in your self-certification request, if you need additional time to complete these steps, you'll scroll down to the Request an Extension accordion. This functionality has changed a little bit since we initially kicked this off. So you'll see it has a plus button to create the extension that will create a pop-up window. All of the requirements should automatically populate into that list, and you will provide us with a new due date that you're requesting and kind of your reasoning behind needing the extension. Once that you'll submit and it'll come to WECC for our review. If it is approved, the system will send an email notification and will update the deadline in a line. Next. Okay, so everything's done. You've marked all of your things complete. You've finalized all of your responses, gone through and submitted any applicable findings. The attestations are ready to go. If you have, if you provided any comments to the parts, those have been finalized too, then you are ready to submit to WECC at that point. So you'll scroll down to the action section and select Submit for CEA Review from the drop-down. And then it'll come, you're done. You've submitted it to WECC and we'll perform our review. So let's go to the next slide and talk about what resources are available to you. So I appreciate your time with this and going through this little self-certification journey with me. I hope it was helpful as you prepare to respond either in this round of self-certifications or in future self-certification activities. If you have any questions, we do provide contact information in that self-certification record. So you can use that to ask particular questions for this self-certification. And if you're looking for additional training resources, NERC has the great training site that we've linked to here. And it has the videos, PDF user guides, and you can walk through all of those steps again with those resources. And if you have any technical issues, be sure to submit a help desk ticket to support.nerc.net. And with that, I'll ask, have we had any questions come through?
We have had a couple come in for you, Angie. First, it says, in the past, we were told to ignore the requirement parts and only answer to at the requirement level. Is that still true?
So you can ignore them. You don't need to respond to them. But like I said, if you have something to say for a particular part, you have the option to provide a comment.
Thank you for making that very clear. Thank you. Appreciate it. Does Align now allow assignment to different individuals for different standards, or does the same individual need to provide all self-certification responses? So just some clarification.
So I know.
Assignment.
Okay, sorry about that. But I know that previously, if you didn't have the same individual assigned, that it would kind of lock up. I'm pretty sure that's been fixed. But like I said, the simplest option is kind of have one person make the assignments to themselves, provide those answers, and submit it. That's kind of the cleanest way to do it, but I'm pretty sure you can have multiple respondents if you needed to.
Okay. Looks like we might have another question. Give me just a moment. Rhonda, do you have a question for Angie? I'm not seeing, sorry, we got a message that said that there was a question, but the question wasn't included with it. So I don't know if they're just typing
Actually,
really
this
quickly. Oh, here we go.
I'm sorry. This is not related necessarily to the self-certifications, but I have been running across a problem in Align with FAC. I can't find any PDS submittals for specifically FAC8, so I can submit it. And I've submitted a ticket to NERC on the 10th, and I haven't gotten any kind of response. And there is no PDS submittal there for FAC3, the quarterly submittal. I guess I'm wondering if you guys have any idea what's going on with that.
Yeah, so for the vegetation management in particular, I know that we have run into an issue where we're creating those distributions that are supposed to come out to all of our entities, and then it's not working properly, and so we've had to do it a few times, and sometimes I think things are still slipping through the cracks, and so we're working through that. So if you're not getting those requests, please do send an email to support@wec.org so that they can make sure to provide you with that. And of course, we'll give you an extension of time to respond. In terms of the FAC8, are you saying that you created a periodic data submittal on your own through the system and it's not showing?
No, actually it's the FAC3, which is typically, that is already built. That's already been built in, and so those aren't even showing up in Align right now. And I obviously have a concern because I have the submittals due. So the question I would have then is, do I go ahead and submit through the EFT server, or because I certainly don't want it to be late. It's ready to roll, but I have nowhere to submit it at this point. And I'm not sure we want to create a new submittal for something that's already a standard submittal.
Right. No, I think, like I said, we have been seeing that it's just been really spotty, which is unfortunate, and it's not restricted to WECC as well. I've heard that it's happened in a couple of other regions, and so we are trying to work through that and trying to identify who is missing still. So, like I said, if you were expecting to get one and you did not, please do send that email so that we can create that again and hopefully get that pushed forward to you for that deadline.
Okay, so then I would just submit it to the wec.org/support, right?
It's just an email letting them know that you hadn't received it. You don't need to let us know your response or anything like that.
Okay, just let you know I didn't get it yet. Okay, got it. Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Maylee. Looks like you put the email.
I typed it too quickly. You're not reporting an email issue. You're reporting a PDS issue, but you're emailing it to support@wec.org. My brain was too fast for my fingers or something. So, but that is the email address. We also did get a couple private messages that there are others who are experiencing this issue as well. So thank you for taking that. It's a little off topic, but it sounds like it's affecting more than one of us. So thank you for answering that, Angie, and we'll get working on that for you guys. All right. I'm not seeing any additional questions at this time for you, Angie, so we can give the mic over to Mark.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Great job, Angie. Great job. Hard to follow. So, good afternoon, everyone. What I'd like to talk about today is some updates, and we thought we'd start 2024 off with basically some reminders. If you'd go to the next slide, please. First off, the updates, we have staffing updates, and then we'll talk about a little bit about registration and then certification. It's some reminders I'd like to discuss. Next slide, please. Excuse me. WECC registration certification staff additions, Abby Fellinger and Carmelina Spinas. A lot of you may know both of them, or especially Carmelina, who was auditor. She's now in the registration and certification team. And Abby Fellinger, who was at Texas RE, is now with WECC and registration and certification team. So it's been a great addition, and we're looking forward to the efforts and that the team's going to provide to you guys. Okay, next slide, please. So let's talk about some registration updates. So the reason why I wanted to bring this up is everybody's well aware of the future IVR registration. And currently, for those IVRs that we're looking at, the possibility, right now the number is at about 237. It could be over 300 additional assets. So with that being said, we wanted to walk through some of the ERO registration, enterprise registration procedures. So to ensure timely updates to the NCR, it's recommended that entities contact their RE as soon as possible and submit the new entity registration request. Generally, that's a 45-day period out from when you're going to have the COD. Due to the number of new registrations, the possibility of that, WECC is requesting a minimum of 60 days before the effective date or the commercial operation date. And I went ahead and put some for folks that may be on the call that could be new, that there are some links to look at the ERO Enterprise Registration Procedure, CORS video library, and of course the CORS end user guide. Next slide, please. So I'd also like to talk about, and this is for everyone's benefit, is the WECC generator welcome package. Sarah Mitchell, who put this together, who is also, I don't want to leave Sarah out, in the registration and certification team. She put this together, and I believe a few months ago, presented it to during the monthly RSO webinar. But I wanted to point out and the key aspects of this is there's registration process overview in it. There's internal controls, GOP roadmap, and internal controls considerations table. And I especially want to point out the GOP roadmap. It's intended to help newly registered entities focus on, and current entities adding assets that focus on developing expectations for their staff or processes needed to maintain reliability. So, you know, that section's broken down into about 3 sections, which talk about the standards that you might need to take a look at. Excuse me. General procedural, there's about 8 standards or requirements in that one. Then there's one section on initial performance. There's about 31 standards or requirements in that. And then there are time-based performance, and there are about 9 standards and requirements in there. So also with the internal controls tables, there's also a section that You can go to the website and the program areas and compliance and get that document as well. Also, the over in the corner of the slide, WECC generator welcome package. It's located in the registration reference documents and forms on WECC.org. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about certifications a little bit. So there's two types of certifications. There's a full certification, BA, TOP, and RC. This is a certification activities that assess the processes and tools, training, and their organizations these organizations use in performing these functions and provide a prospective level of assurance that the organization has the capacity to meet the reliability obligations of its registration. It's been a long day. And then there's the certification review. The certification review, I especially want to talk about this one. It provides a reasonable assurance that an already certified and operational registered entity is going to continue to support reliable operations of the BPS after initiating a material change. The review will seek assurance that the entity has addressed personal training and qualification facilities and equipment needed to perform and maintain the reliability functions in accordance with the applicable requirements of reliability standards and considering, among other things, the following. You go to the next slide, please. BPS reliability impacts of the change, critical infrastructure protection implications of the change, operator training in support of the change, data collection, sharing, and facility monitoring, and control necessary for real-time assessments, as well as the next day and longer-term planning, coordination of normal and emergency operations. And why I wanted to talk about this is in 2022, we sent out the normal entity questionnaire that we used to send out. And when the data came back in mid-2023, we were looking at it. And all the changes that were noted in there was probably close to 95 to 100 that probably, and not probably, should have notified WECC certification for these changes within their systems. We go to the next slide, please. So then you notify WECC certification to do a review if the following will take place in your organization. Now, this is all in Appendix 5A of the NERC Rules of Procedure. I've kind of just broken it apart into bullets. Changes to the entity's footprint, including decertification changes to existing JROs or CFR assignments, or subset list of requirements, and it can be characterized by the following. So we're looking for you to contact us if there's new metered boundaries associated with integration or disassociation of existing electrical areas of the BPS, meaning within the RC, TOP, or BA areas. Also changes in ownership of BES facilities and applicability of the BES definition to a facility and newly installed BES facilities. Review of changes to an already registered and operational entity's footprint is primarily concerned with ensuring the gaining and functional entity has the tools, training, and security in place to reliably operate with new responsibilities. New metered boundaries associated with integration or disassociation of existing electrical areas of the BPS with reliability coordinator, transmission operator, balancing authority. I think I said that one already, didn't I? Apologize for that. Modification of the energy management system, which is expected to materially affect SIP security parameters or the system operator in the situational awareness functionality and machine interfaces. And again, like I said, all the above are in Appendix 5A of the NERC Rules of Procedure. And, again, this is kind of a reminder that we want to get out in front of everyone. and we'll keep talking about this because we really need to be notified whenever there's changes according to the NERC rules of procedure. Next slide, please. Hey, mine was short and sweet. So if you do have any questions, or if you need help with registrations, you can contact registration at WECC.org or certification at WECC.org as well. Maylee?
We have a question for you.
Okay.
If an entity has provided the necessary documentation to deregister a generating facility to WECC, should the entity expect to have official notification of deregistration from WECC within a certain time period after the retirement date of that facility?
So the deregistration is a little different, and we do have time periods on that. But it also, if you have any open enforcement actions, they will have to be cleared up first. So that will put it in a hold until those are cleared up. So we like to finish those up in about 60 days. But again, they'll be on hold until the open enforcement actions are completed. Hope that helps.
I think it does. Thank you. I am not seeing another question. We'll give it like one beat, I guess, in case someone's, as I've already demonstrated today, it's a little tricky to type while you're on these calls. We'll give them just a second, but I'm not seeing anything else coming in. So thank you both, Angie and Mark. You did a great job in just getting us these updates today and that training on self-certifications. Appreciate you both being here. Next session will be on February 15th, and we will have an excellent, this one's sponsored by our internal controls group. So we'll have an internal controls focus, and we hope to see you there at 2 p.m. Mountain next month. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, everybody.